Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be debunking this care guide on the African dwarf frog.
Hey y'all, welcome back. Andy with My Hectic Life Pets, where we talk about all things pet and pet related. And today, let's get to know the African dwarf frog. So the African dwarf frog is a tiny little aquatic frog. They are 100% aquatic, so they cannot survive outside of water for more than 15 to 20 minutes. Now they are a social frog, so you do want to...
That's where I'm going to stop you. They can be with other frogs, but they also kind of don't care. They can also be by themselves.
Have at least 2 in your tank. A 5 to 10 gallon tank is usually pretty
yeah, it's fine.
Suitable for them, depending on how many frogs you want to keep. Now they are air breathers, so you don't want to keep them in too deep of a tank. If you have like a 50 gallon tall tank, you definitely don't want to put those frogs in there. Smaller tank.
That's not true. That's not true. They can do perfectly fine in a taller tank if you have well oxygen flow and places for them to breach to the surface. Then it's perfectly fine.
Tanks tend to be on the more shallow side, which makes it easier for them to come up for air. Now for filtration, these guys are not the strongest swimmers, so you do...
They are the strongest swimmers I've ever seen. You should see how fast my frogs are when they go up for air. They are the fastest swimmers I can find.
It's for your frogs. Filter or add a baffle. Underground. Now for filtration, these guys are not the strongest swimmers, so you do want to get a low flow filter or add a baffle. Under gravel filters, sponge filters, these are great filtration methods for your frogs. If you do have a power filter or internal filter,
really, any filter would be okay. Canister, sponge, any filter. Really.
Filter that you do feel is a little strong. Some of these are adjustable where you can turn the flow down on the water pump, and if it's not adjustable, you can always add a baffle. Filter floss or a filter sponge can do wonders on slowing down the flow in your tank. So the African dwarf frog can be a little on the clumsy side sometimes, and they can really easily injure themselves.
Well, only if you have like really sharp things in your tank, like razor blades. Like, no one has razor blades in their tank though, so really not. And like, honestly, like, any substrate would do, any decorations, really, unless they're like super dangerous.
So you want to make sure that you are using a smooth substrate in the tank, and you want to use decorations that does not have any sharp...
Aha! What is that right there? You're literally talking about not using sharp edges. Do you see that point there? Do you see that point?
Edges. These guys are a little bit on the shy side, so giving them a little bit of safe decor that does not have sharp edges and live plants or even silk plants is going to be a huge help for them and make them feel more safe and secure in their tank. Now the African dwarf frog's lifespan is on average about 5 years, but there have been reported cases of them living as long as 10 plus years. So you might be able to get to enjoy your frogs for many years to come. So for the African dwarf frog's diet, of course, these guys are insectivores. So
now that is not true, because most people know that if you fed crickets to your fish, they float at the top of the tank. African dwarf frogs are bottom dwellers. The crickets will not sink. I don't think they're going to go dashing up and down to grab some crickets. Honestly, I'm just being completely honest. And, she does not explain tank mates. I'll make a tank mate video on my channel.
There are manufactured pellets out there available for aquatic frogs and tadpoles, but they will also enjoy things like mysis shrimp, tubifex worms, brine shrimp, and bloodworms.
That's true. That's probably the best food that you can feed them.
Be cautious if you are feeding things like live tubifex worms to your frogs, as they can carry parasites.
True.
So just be on the cautious side there. So moving along, the African dwarf frog's ideal temperature range in their tank is going to be between 75 and 78 degrees. Now, like most...
That's not true. They can do perfectly fine in 75 to 80. because most animals, they'll say, oh, these guys are cold water. These guys are not cold water. They do perfectly fine in 80 degrees. Like most things. Like people will be like, you don't want your aquatic ecosystem being like a frozen lake. I'm just saying.
Aquatic life, you want to make sure that there is not a large fluctuation going on in the tank temperatures. So depending on where you live and how warm your tank water stays.
Personally, with these guys, 78, 79, or 80 would be fine. Just make sure it's not 81 or 82. You don't want it as hot as the core of the sun.
You might need to get a heater for your frogs. And as with most aquatic animals,
bro, anywhere you are, unless you're not in the middle of the Sahara Desert, which, by the way, one of those frogs cannot live in the Sahara Desert if you're asking me, but they'll do perfectly. Everything needs a heater, except like white cloud, mountain minnows, koi, goldfish, or anything cold water, hill stream loaches, stuff like that.
Animals and fish, you will ideally want to cycle your tank before adding
like everything else except plants.
them in. Now do be aware though that these guys tend to do best in.
Now, they do perfectly fine in community tanks. As you guys can clearly see in my 75 gallon, I have a huge range of community fish that do perfectly fine with these guys. The only instance I had when my frog tried to do something to one of my fish was when it tried to eat one of my cherry barbs, but that was because it was sick and dying, and I had to get rid of him. That was when I got ick in my tank.
In a species-only tank, they can sometimes survive with other fish, sometimes with larger shrimp, but do be careful with shrimp. They need to be large enough that the frog will not eat them, or they will eat them. And with other fish, these guys do tend to be a little bit of a fin nipper, so definitely.
They are not fin nippers, unless there's like a bottom-dwelling betta fish that I've never heard of, which I've never heard of a bottom-dwelling betta fish. All of them like dwell to the top or middle of your tank.
Keep an eye on that. Some are more nippy than others. I had a female that was super aggressive.
I've never seen an aggressive dwarf frog in my life.
And would even bite at the other frogs, so it can be on a frog-to-frog basis as to how aggressive they are going to be. Okay, so that's all for today.
Okay, guys, that's all for today. Please don't listen to this person's YouTube channel, or just this video in general. Peace out, guys. I'll be making more videos soon.